Dick has got an encyclopedia of knowledge in his head, and he recalls dates and documents and all kinds of things that I don't have that capability, right? And we had a meeting earlier, and we were talking about how can we present all this information to you guys so that it's easy for you to understand, okay? And really, what we discussed was, do you start out with the Constitution, the original one, and then go in a time sequence? Or do you jump from there and pick out this one and then go to this year? And he said, well, it depends on you. Because your brain works a little bit different than his does. And same as mine, a little bit different, right? So it's kind of hard to do it that way.
It depends. People pick up things from different people saying it a different way. And sort of, if somebody can say it different to what I'm saying it, and it works out, that's good. I'm not the be-all and end-all. I've just got black and white facts. And most people just don't like reading black and white facts. But the thing is, it's what we found out, how they've screwed the hell out of us, the whole system, not the whole system because I'm still learning, but a big part of the system of how they've screwed us. And like, we're in a system today, being World Economic Forum, where the problem is we own nothing, but you lot don't own, you're not happy. That's the problem. So we've got to get around that point. Okay. Like even your car's registered Queensland government. Everything's registered Queensland government. I've got a letter from the minister saying the Queensland government is the corporation. So they know what we know, or what we're learning. These, how would you put it? Well, political parties are not within our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act. So everything we're listening to today in law is crap. And that's being very polite.
All right, fair enough. Now, I think a lot of you guys who are our regular attendees that come in here all the time, we've gone through a lot of different learnings about this and about how we know that the people who are there right now claiming to be government are actually a corporation. And there's several of them actually, many hundreds of them, probably even thousands of them.
Anything with an ABN tied to the government is a corporation.
Fair enough.
And like an ABN, like we all know, ABN means Australian Business Number. But the thing is with that, they changed the definition of Australia, Commonwealth, meaning their Commonwealth of Australia in a geographical sense in 1973. So the Australia from 1973 forward is not our Australia, it's not our Commonwealth, and it's not our Commonwealth of Australia. All they've done basically is we're fighting the pen. They've just changed the definitions and used the same words, but with different definitions. So it's a very simple process what they've done, and what we're fighting is the pen. I've just gone dead. The electronics. Hello? Oh, yeah. Can the people down the back hear? Yeah, good one.
Try and avoid that feedback.
So, so this is what we're up against. And which is a very major point with them changing the definitions. They've created every state, like every state under our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act is an original state. It states that under Clause 6, we are all original acts. In 1985, we joined what the political parties created in 1973, a sovereign independent federal nation outside our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act. Political parties in every state joined that system in 1985. So therefore, our Queensland that we know of now is a sovereign independent federal nation in a geographical sense. Now when you go into geographical sense, geographical means the study of geography. Geography is the study of things on the land and how we interact with the land. So there's nothing of concrete within that system. Sense is you got eye sense, smell sense, all that sort of thing. So all they've done is created an Australia and a Commonwealth, or the Commonwealth of Australia, in a geographical sense, is writing on a piece of paper.
So what we mean by that? I'm going to articulate this a little bit as well, okay? So what we mean by that is, you look up on the United States Securities Exchange Commission, and you can find the Commonwealth of Australia is a registered corporation in the US. Okay, it has an Australian address, it has a CIK number, which is their identification number, it's formal, it's all there. And it says that, if you look down a little bit further, it says that, well, will it be selling shares or trading, and from time to time it says. Now, here's the thing. There's no actual company, it's just they've created it on paper. So they don't actually trade shares.
You can't buy shares.
You can't buy shares in the Commonwealth of Australia. But it is a company registered in America. It's just not a bricks and mortar type of company that you're thinking, or something that you actually can invest in. So they've created this company. He said, like he said, it's on paper. It's just on paper. That's all it is. And by that document, by that filing, set of documents, that's where they have bamboozled the Australian public into thinking that, well, it's, we think it's the government, that we elect these people to go in, when in fact it actually is a company. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, I didn't know that part of it, Dick.
Yeah,
I didn't know that there's no trading, that it's just actually literally a piece of paper. I didn't know that until you told me that earlier.
Yeah, it's a con job. The whole system is a con job. And see, when they turned around and created the sovereign independent federal nation in a geographical sense in 1973, that was the Commonwealth political parties. But what you got to realise, in 1960, just going quickly back things, 1960, the political parties removed the authority of the Governor-General. They took over the Governor-General. Now the Governor-General, in letters patent, must be appointed by Royal Sign Manual and Signet. Now the Signet is a very major part of the authority of the Commission. So they put another seal over the Commission. We're doing that all the time here in Queensland. I have the documents for that.
And that seal is this one up here, right?
That's that one there.
Yeah.
I'll go through those in a minute, please.
Okay.
But they created this sovereign independent federal nation in a geographical sense. We couldn't find the Proclamational Gazette for the Royal Stars and Titles Act when they created this system. So I was friendly with Catter's office at the time, so I asked the ladies there to go into the Parliamentary Library for their Canberra office and get me the Proclamation and Gazette for the Royal Stars and Titles Act. Now a lot of people say, but the Queen signed up on the right-hand side at the top. No. Queen of Australia was created in the Australian Citizenship Act of 1973. They removed us in 1973, and the very first act that Whitlam put in, they removed the living. Then they created the abstract. Then they created the Royal Styles and Titles Act for their system. When I got the Royal Styles and Titles Act is 3 pages. When they came back to me with the Proclamation Gazette, that is 5 pages. In that, they created a whole new Governor-General of Australia, Parliament of Australia, Government of Australia, all under their changed constitutional definitions, all written just on bits of paper. And their Queen of Australia is only a piece of paper with Queen of Australia written on it. That's when they did that, but because they owned and controlled the Governor-General. If you go back to 1960, just after they took total control of the Governor-General, we went to war with Vietnam with a defence force for the defence of the Commonwealth of Nations. That was an illegal war for us to go into. Now we find out that the Yanks actually created the war. But anyway, we went into that, and in 1965, every state and every governor of every state created an act to create the dollar. The dollar is counterfeit to our Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act. So from that point forward, every governor, every judge is compromised. And when you compromise, you'll do as you're bloody told. Otherwise, we can all organise something for you. So in that system there, all above us is compromised. 73, as I was explaining, they created their own parliament and stuff. Then they created you got the Federal Court, the Family Court, the High Court, Australian Federal Police, all under the definition of Australia by the Queen of Australia. So nobody's got authority Commonwealth-wise from that point forward. Well, they can't have even from 1960 forward, because you need a Governor-General representing the Crown. And those have got sticks. My book is in, or I call it my book, but anyway, it's the book, is in those documents. If you go to page 54, you've got a High Court judgment there telling you that the dollar doesn't have a head of power. And you've got to get your head around the idea of having a head of power. The head of power is where, on our pound note, used to have the Queen's head on it with the crown. That head of power was taken out. Now the head of power is section 61 of our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, and the Governor-General represents the Crown. The Crown is the head of power. She was backing our money, the pound. She had the royal minerals were hers. That's the gold and silver in this country. That's why our pound was perfectly backed up and we couldn't go broke. People say we went broke, and that's why this and why that. We got more gold and silver in this country and know what to do with. It was backed by that. The moment they took us off that, we had nothing. In fact, everybody in that system, is compromised. Now, just for swearing your oath, I'll go back to the Governor-General. When he comes in as the governor, as so-called, they're going to make him the Governor-General, he has to swear his oath to the Chief Justice of our High Court. Because the commission wasn't properly done, the Chief Justice of our High Court sold his soul. And when the High Court is over and above every court in the land, we don't have a proper court from that day forward. It is totally corrupt. It's just one hell of a hole.
So, real quick, what you're saying then is that they've managed to pull off this scam by changing some definitions, essentially. That's what
basically all it
boils down to.
Yeah.
And so, when we look at the new Constitution of Australia, and it has that kangaroo and emu on it, right?
It's copyrighted. I might just go through the pictures while I'm here. Now, all these we've got.
It's better when you can walk around with it.
Okay. I'll start over here. Now up here, this is the seal that's on our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act. That's royal thing, and we did a lot of work with the Garter King in England to find out what these seals were. And he's got a crown, but these are basically supporters. The main authority in this is that badge that they're holding up. I don't have it here, but that badge is a very major problem. When you take that badge out, we've got nothing left. Here, we've got what we call the Royal Coat of Arms, same as there, but then the political parties in 1973 created this. At that time, they defaced a royal warrant to create their seal. It's done by the Queen of Australia and Great Seal of Australia. Both those Australias are not ours. This is a major part of getting your head around this whole system. We still talk about Australia this or the Commonwealth that, but it's not our Australia and not our Commonwealth. And our Commonwealth of Australia is not. When they changed the constitutional definitions and created their own Commonwealth of Australia, now just think for a minute, that's our Commonwealth of Australia, Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act. They copyrighted our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, and therefore we are not within their seal and the copyright. It's the same here in Queensland when we get into the Local Government Act. We're not between the seal in Queensland and the copyright. We just go down here. This is what we used to have. This is the Parliament of Queensland. Now the of here is very much belonging to. That's what it stands for. So we've got a parliament belonging to Queensland. That's a parliament by the people, for the people. When you go over here, you've got this Queen of Australia is registered in Washington and is trademarked to the US, and that's a serial number. I call it the protector of pedophiles, because when Senator Len Harris had his speech, he turned around and said, this is a police document. There are 28 pedophiles in this document. What did the police do? They just got under the table. It's the same, I had a meeting with the federal police here in Cairns many years ago, and they said to me, we need it in writing. So I gave it to them in writing. I sent it to them, I sent it to the head office in Brisbane, I sent it to the head office in Canberra, and they all just got under the table and never spoke to me ever since. So they know what's going on. Like the Federal Police Act, or Australian Federal Police Act of 1979, the first thing they did was take out Commonwealth Police, because it was still under that definition. So they removed that. So in essence, now, today, police do not have any Crown authority whatsoever. They're actually, when you go into the definition of mercenaries, they are written into that system as mercenaries. So, sort of police, there's maybe some good ones left, but most of them are not real crash hot when you look at what's happened through COVID and all things like that.
Does that include the Australian Federal Police?
Pardon?
Does that include the Australian Federal Police?
Yes. The Australian Federal Police was created in 1973, 79, sorry, just before the High Court of Australia was created in 1979. And in that system, they paid the High Court a hell of a lot of money for their holidays and leaves and all that sort of thing. It was just a bribery of corruption. But see, when you go back into the Constitution, or our Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act, the Governor-General in Council appoints a judiciary. When you don't have a Governor-General, you don't have a Governor-General in Council, so you don't have a judiciary. The last judge that I can remember that was still appointed under the proper system finished up in 1973, 74, somewhere around then. But see, he was sitting in Treason at the time because he was getting paid in dollars. Under the Constitution, it still tells you today, if you can get one of these books, they'll tell you today, it's still got to be pounds. It's still got to be pounds. They tell you in that book that it's the Prime Minister doesn't have an office in our Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act, nor does the opposition. So you've got a whole system that's just brainwashed us because they don't teach our Constitution. And solicitors would be the dumbest of the educated because you can't even talk to them. They are absolutely just dumb. So, and when you look at that, when we started this off in, they started annoying us in 1992 on the farm, and we turned around and we went to the university to find out what an act looked like, and Queensland Library sold all the law books out of the Queensland Library, believe that. They just sold them. So we went to the James Cook Uni, and we used to spend days and days there, just going, trying to work out what the hell was going on. Okay, so this is what we used to have. This is what we've got today. Now I've got the axe of where they made this. They created this. That's part of their creation, what they made for themselves. It's a royal crown, what they claim. A lot of people tell you it's a St. Edward's crown. I don't give a damn what you call it. It's corrupt, totally corrupt. And that's what we've got today. This is total treason, treasonous political parties. Queensland has a status as a sovereign independent federal nation. We the people said no to the treasonous political parties, republic, dictatorship. Now in 1999, we had a referendum over all this stuff, over the Australia Acts Request Act, which we'll go into later, and the Australia Act. We had a referendum and we said no. they said get stuffed. We've gone too far now to back out. Because they were all sitting in treason, and every political party today should have a hemp noose around their bloody necks, and the professors of law, because they're the ones teaching the so-called lawyers and all that sort of thing. Now, we've got to start somewhere or another to pull this into line, because at present, they are screwing us left, right and centre. We'll just go to the other side. And we still got the Queen of Australia sitting on top of us. This here, I've got the act where that comes from. They created that in 1997, but in 1991, they were running 2 sets of books in the Queensland Parliament. One with the proper seal, and one with, they were starting with this thing very fudged up. They were running 2 sets of books. We knew Rosalie Long. She was a member for the Tablelands in the Parliament, and she said to me, Dick, if you want something, you write it, and I will try and get it for you. She was the one that got me to the point where the Queensland government is the corporation. She states it, tells you straight out, Queensland government. Everything you've got is registered to the Queensland government. So all you're doing is registering to the Queensland government, and when you vote, it's all you're voting for. Is a corporation, and you don't have shares in it. It's illegal for them to bill you for not voting, and it's illegal for you to vote when you don't have shares in that corporation. This being in the middle here is the same as that piece over there, down the bottom 2 lots there. That's what the Parliament sits under. It's got no crown and no constitutional authority whatsoever. This here is our public functionary seal for Queensland. Now, public functionary seal is for the Governor and Council working with the executive government. Now, a public functionary seal is for, say, the Health Department, Education Department, that sort of thing. Now, with that system, the Governor and Council make sure when they make a subordinate legislation like a regulation, proclamation, anything like that is subordinate legislation, he makes sure that they've got the authority from the Act to create that system. So it's still within authority, but it's for public functionaries. Got nothing to do with acts, nothing at all. Then they turn around and created this thing. That's the same as this up here, all done in 1997. They created this. But in the 2001 Constitution, in 2002, they put it in on the 6th of June 2002. They put the Constitution in, and a big deal, it's on Queensland Day, hooray, hooray. They turn around and they rip that seal out and put their own seal in. Now, a lot of people have told me that seals don't mean jack shit. It's everything under that seal has authority of that seal. If the seal ain't got authority, then it's not worth a pinch of shit. What they did is they changed this, our public functionary seal, took it out and put theirs in. By doing that, when you go into our criminal code, that's life imprisonment with hard labour. So seals mean a hell of a lot. And you get to the stage over there, we've got our Royal Coat of Arms, and they've turned around and created this piece of shit for the Queen of Australia and the Great Seal of Australia, and to do that they had to deface a royal seal to do it. We have all the paperwork on that. You go here, this is Walter Campbell. He was the governor that put in the, yes Steve? Don't ask me. What we got to remember, they're house warmers or the seat warmers. The same here in the States and in the Governor General. We got letters patent on how the Governor General is to be appointed, but the letters patent was the creation of the Governor General office, and it's the same with the letters patent for the states, the Governor's office. So what we've got in there is only seat warmers, and we're supposed to keep them honest. That's where we've fallen down. Now here, we've got this clown up here. Sheesh.
Correction. Palachuk. It's Palachuk. It's technically Palachuk because it's a Ukrainian name. And if you look up how do you pronounce CZUK, it's Chuk. That's official and true, and you can find it. So we should have all called her by the correct name.
Palachuk.
And her father was a Nazi during World War II in Ukraine.
Yes, yes. And he was one of our ministers at one time. He was there with Peter Beattie, because I've spoken with him.
We're from Chinese, got their DNA.
Now here, as I was going before, Walter Campbell signed in, like we'll see later, the Australia Acts Request Act of 1985. He's...
Sorry. Can you, okay, so this is something that was really interesting to me when I was talking to you earlier, Dick, and I'd like you to talk a little bit more about this. So we kind of think that the Australia Act of 85 was actually the one that changed us into a corporation. But the treasonous part actually wasn't when that act came into being. The treasonous part was when all of the states wrote their requests for that act. So they all wrote an act as a request.
Yes.
For that act to be created. That's the actual treasonous part of the whole thing, of it becoming a corporation.
Yes.
And then they went and changed our definitions, and then now we're operating under a Queen of Australia.
Well, I think they should both have lost their heads, but anyway, that's me.
So I didn't know that, and that was interesting that you pointed that out. Now you've got documentation of all that too,
Yes,
right?
yes, we'll go through that later on the Australia Acts Request Act and how they put it in, because it was totally treasonous, and like the Australia Act came out after it, and every state tells you that from the Australia Act forward, all the acts are purported acts with purported enactments, and the definition in the Oxford Dictionary, which is the only dictionary you use for Crown law, this idea of having the Black's Law Dictionary is bullshit, because that's American, it's totally different again. You use the Oxford Dictionary, we're under English law, common law of England, there's only one. But in that, it tells you that the purported acts means purported to do or be especially falsely. So they're telling you that the whole system from 1986 forward is false. So, yeah. But these governors, all these 6 governors so-called, are sitting in, well, they'd be in, I'd say, treachery or treason to their office and treason against the people, because there's no Crown authority. This clown here, he created and put forward the Australia Acts Request Act for the sovereign independent federal nation. We are a constitutional monarchy. That book that Colette held up before tells you so. And there's quite a few parts in that book that tell you so, plus it still has our constitution in it. And the fact is that they rely that we don't read. We must read. The facts are all there, they've told us everything. I've gone through a lot of it, but I'm still learning today. Like, Colette was in court a couple of months ago, and I was sitting beside her in court, and the prosecutor bundled a whole heap of paper on Colette's desk. And it was for the District Court of Queensland. And I thought to myself, you dumb bugger. I've read it a dozen times where they've changed the District Court to insert in Queensland. They turn around and change. It took me a long time to work it out, but I should have known when we turned around and joined the Commonwealth under their changed constitutional definitions. By joining that, we also lost our state definitions, and all our states today are now sovereign independent federal nations in a geographical sense, right? We got the right, it's only writing on a piece of paper, but there's no Crown authority, there's no referendum or anything for it. And then when we had the referendum, like I said before, everything came back no in 1999. But they just said, get stuffed, we're keeping going with what we've got. So the whole system is, the referendum wasn't legal anyway, because in 1960, they took over the Governor-General, and he's the one that writes the writs. It's the same for Zoom today. Not Zoom, what do you call it? This Aboriginal thing that's going on today, the Voice. You haven't got a Governor-General to write the writ. It's just another piece of shit that they're shoving on us to try and...
It goes in this constitution.
Yeah.
It goes in a fraudulent.
He can't... all our Governor-Generals since 1960, including 1960, should be taken out in the arm. They all swear their oath to the Queen of Australia. They're all appointed by Royal Sign Manual and whatever seal the political parties can come up with. And it's not up here, but there's a Queen of Australia seal that I quite often use. And that's what they used when Quentin Bryce was getting put into being a governor, state governor. There's another gentleman I was working with in Mackay, and I sent the seal down to him because I wasn't clued up on seals at that time. He faxed it straight through to the Commonwealth Governor General's office and asked them if that was the same seal that was on the Governor General's Commission. And it came back, yes, this is the same seal on the Governor General's Commission. So then I sent it to England, to the Garter King, and he said there's no such thing in my office. Now he has all the seals and everything to do with that in his office. That's his job. So he just said there's no such thing in my office. So it's just another fraud, this whole system. Now, I just mentioned before that Colette was in court. So I'll just give this over to Colette for a minute, for a long minute, please, if that's all right. So,
That's the Queen's Trace.
oh yes, but I can't.
Yeah, it's too small.
It's too small to see, but it's the seal that I sent to England and asked them what validation it was. And like I said, the Garter King in England turned around and said, "There's no such thing in my office." In other words, it's just a homemade piece of shit.
So it's very much like that one, but with a circle around it saying the Queen of Australia. Anyone can look at these up. Do you want that one or this one?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, hi, my name's Colette. I met Dick through a common law group. I've been on a common law group for about 3 years, and Dick's been with us for just over 12 months now, I think, something like that. I got arrested for being at work. I worked at the Mission... Yeah, it's funny. It is funny. It's very comical. Yeah, I work at the Mission Beach Tavern, and I don't know if any of you know that they closed the Mission Beach Tavern down. We had a nice big sign out the front saying welcome to communism, and that's what it was like. We had 8 police come in from all angles. And it was an Australia Day, not that that's anything in particular, because let's face it, it's their Australia Day. They came in and they wanted my papers. It wasn't the first time I'd seen them, they'd been in before, which I started showing them legislation, their own legislations, Commonwealth legislations, because at the time I didn't know all this stuff, you know. I just thought, well, this legislation tops yours, and it was my health records. It said that any law enforcement would, if they took my private information, my medical information, could be in prison for 5 years. Now, my breaking of the law was only like 6 months, and I thought, theirs must top mine, so this must be a good document. So I showed the sergeant that document on the 17th of December, and he didn't ask me to leave. He just walked away because he had never seen it before, and he was a bit gobsmacked. And I felt from that point on that he was going to victimise me, which he did. On the Australia Day, he come back with, like I said, 8 police. He asked me for my papers. This time he had a tablet and he stuck to his, spiel and kept going on about his spiel. And I went to show him the paper, and he said, I've seen that before. And I said, oh, because I'd not seen this copy before, and, you know, didn't know him. And I went, oh, you're the guy I showed that to, right? I get who you are now. And I said, so you read it? And he just didn't say anything. I said, so you know there's fine, and you know what the sentence is and that. I said, so now you're complicit in a crime, which, by the way, is not on my video evidence. I didn't have my video to record him. So when you get this evidence from the police, it's always doctored. So they're prepared to do anything. They're prepared to lie in court, and I had that on prosecutors lying in court. They put their version, edited version, so that wasn't in there. So obviously that wasn't in there. And when I tried to show him this paper, and he said, are you going to show me? And I said, no. And he didn't ask me to leave, although he asked other people in the pub to leave. I never got that opportunity, ever. He just said, you're under arrest. That was not on the video evidence. He dubbed it, because one thing they do, they have the cameras here, you can't see their mouth move, and so they can dub over it. And he said, on the video evidence, now I'll ask you to leave. He then, outside of the pub, a second time for me, said, you're under arrest, but that was the first time on the video evidence. So the evidence that I had in court, I sat in the witness stand and I said, that's not how I recall it. I can't say that's, that was doctored, and that was because I didn't have no proof, and he who puts the thing out there, I stubbed the proof. So I said it was my recollection. I went home and I wrote down everything that happened, and I said he did not ask me to leave, he just arrested me. And then I looked at the policeman sitting there, because I'd allowed him to be in the court, and the judge clearly turned around and said, can you stop intimidating my witness? Okay, that's a guilty man. He puts his eyes to the ground, he can't look, he's not intimidated, he's guilty. He knew what he'd done for his job. They're not there for us. And I realised at that point that I'm going to get this fine, I don't care. Really, I'm here with Dick's paperwork to show the fraud. We did. We put all Dick's paperwork in. I read out some of the things that Dick said then about the seals, and about the seal on law being fraudulent, and by putting that fraudulent seal out there, that they are liable for imprisonment with hard labour. I used the word treason, which she moved on her seat, very hot seat, around. I read out purported acts with purported enactments, 9A. Yeah, read that out. And then I said, and English, the Oxford English Dictionary, which she said, oh, English. The courts are not in English, people. They're not in English.
That's right, we know this.
Yeah. And so by putting this, she was giving out so much information. So we served her, and in the end, I got a fine that was the same as the fine I went in. But I had 12 months going backwards and forwards with mentions, because they couldn't get me to plead. I never pleaded in the whole time. And each time I served every judge by name that I came in front of. So 2 judges have been served. One from Cairns, I think, Kathy McLean, I think her name is. She's from Cairns. She came down, and she had an alumni award. I did a bit of research. I was doing research on my judges and my magistrates before I go in, so I can give them a personal letter. And she once did a thing up at the JCU there, where she interviewed, and she was supporting all these people going through this, and she was saying, oh, look, use all the tools in your toolbox, and, try and try again. If you fail, try again. So I put that in the letter. I'm trying and I'm failing, but I'm using all the tools in my toolbox. So I wrote her these nice letters, her words, and she actually put herself into common law because she threatened me. She asked me to get out of the court, and I laughed, and I sat there. And she said, if you don't get out, I'm going to count 1, 2. And I laughed again. And she said, I'll get the police. And I went, well, what's she doing here? She's got a uniform, get her, And she then went, I'm going to hold you in contempt. And I said, thank you. You've just put me into common law. Now she needs to bring me a victim. So every time I went in there, I put the judges in a position where they saw They have no authority over me. They can say what they like, but I don't respect you. Stand up. No. Okay. I don't care. Whatever. That was her voice. I said, well then, stop interrupting me. And she points to her gown and says, respect. And I pointed to my Bible and said, this tells me not to. And she shut up. So that's a powerful law book. Whether you're religious or you believe, I don't care, that's a powerful law book, and it makes them shut up, quit smart. In this court with Dick sat next to me, which he found very strange that they allowed you to sit there.
I was allowed to sit there as a Mackenzie's friend. Sorry, I was allowed to sit there as a Mackenzie's friend, which in Queensland is basically non-existent anymore, because they don't like you helping. And like every time I've been to court, they tell me, get yourself a lawyer, because the lawyers work for the court, they don't work for us. They're the dumbest of the educated. They're absolutely bloody useless.
But we feel they did that because this lady, this magistrate, I'd served prosecutors. I served one prosecutor, they moved her to Gympie, uprooted her and her children and her family and moved her to Gympie. The senior prosecutor, I served him. I went through the police station at Innisfail. The police lady took it in. He came out and he threw it on the desk. And I said, oh, you didn't like that one, Sean, eh? As he walks out the door. And so I waited about a month and then I posted it to him and registered mail. They had it. So he couldn't turn up to court because he would be in treason himself. He didn't want to be there. He didn't believe in the COVID stuff, but I was pushing him into a position where he had to decide, and he decided not to turn up. So they sent a prosecutor from Brisbane for me, little old me, and a clerk from Brisbane, because I got rid of the clerk as well. Because I went into the office to serve some papers at the Innisfail courthouse, and she wouldn't take my papers, so my husband said, don't worry, we've got it on video here. And I said, well, can I have your name? And she gave me one name, and I said, no, the other, all your name, because I wanted as evidence. Oh my God, she said. I went, your God? Oh, no, not your God, my God. So she put a foot in her mouth, and I went, oh, so your God's different than my God? And as she's walking away, I said, yours must be the devil. And I walked out. So she didn't come back to court. So they sent one up from Brisbane. So we had a bit of fun, didn't we?
Yeah. It was a good day.
I'll let Dick finish the rest because, yeah, so that's it.
Even in the court, when Colette would ask people, Colette would ask the person sitting in the box a question. If the judge didn't like it, the judge answered. And after being in court as Colette's, just to help Colette out, I would be pointing at different things to Colette to say, you've got to put this in. And I was taking the judge out. And the judge just told me, you will not do that again. You will sit there quietly. You are not allowed to do that anymore. So they know. And I've been into court many times. And every time from the magistrate to the Supreme Court judges, they've known what I'm talking about. And they tell me, you'll sit down, shut up, or you'll end up down below in jail. That's how when the first time I was in the Supreme Court, I asked the judge there, Crown Law were taking me to court to shut me up. That's how good Crown Law are. They changed the definition of Crown Law to state, and state is the executive government. They changed that definition over, so you're thinking you've got Crown Law sitting there and there's no bloody Crown there whatsoever. They're taking me to court to shut me up because I was using seals. And when you look at the seals, changing those seals is life imprisonment, hard labour, and the way they were pushing it forward, that is treason again. So they've wiped out Her Most Excellent Majesty, which is part of treason. So this whole system is built around that system. And these judges know, like I was pushing in the Supreme Court, I was pushing Clause 5 of our Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act, which binds us all. It doesn't matter who you are, it binds us to that system where we're bound to the laws made by the Commonwealth of Australia under the Constitution. This system, it's our Commonwealth of Australia too I'm talking about. Every time I talked it into the court, the judge would override me, and it just kept going like this, backwards and forwards, to the point where I thought, well, bugger you, you bastard. I turned around and started again, putting it into court, and he lifted his voice above mine, so I just lifted my voice above him to the point where I shouted it into court. Then he said to Crown Law, he can't win in this court, can he? That's when he told me straight, these courts are not Crown courts.
They're not our courts.
They're not our courts at all. And Crown Law said, no, he can't win in this court. Because they knew they were representing the executive government, not the Crown, because they changed the definitions. This is the whole thing, how they're screwing us. They just changed the definition, but then we still talk about Crown Law. What the hell is Crown Law? But a mob of bloody treasonous office. That's all Crown Law is today. So you've got this system, and then Crown Law said to the judge, we want to charge him on an indemnity basis for all fees. That means by 3, like they had to fly up from Brisbane. Those clowns would only be running first class. They'd be staying in Cairns here on first class. So the bill was quite big that they sent me. So I wrote them a very nice letter saying, when we get to a proper court, I will sue each and every one of you. And then they turn around, and I've never heard about the bill since. But this is where we've got to stand up. And when we go to court, we've got to take, if it's a policeman taking us to court, take him under his police system and his private system. You've got to take them both. And you've got to take them in a system where at the end of the letter, you've put in there, my name, whatever it is, have transferred the guilt of knowledge to you and your heirs and successors. That puts them on notice of treason, and it takes the treason off your back. Like, we all believe in treason, which is what's happening here all the time. If we don't transfer it forward, we're sitting in it. Everybody laughed when I put treason into the court, and the judge cracked on, and the rubbish you put into court, I'm not interested in your rubbish. And then at the end of the day, he turned around and said to me, is there anything more you want to put into court? And I said, yeah, I'll just read this out for you. And I started reading out one of the commissions for the governors. And I only got through the first bit of it, and he said, you can sit down and shut up. I'm not interested in any more of the shit you put into court. So, so they knew exactly what I was talking about.
So Dick, what power would you have there to take him to treason right there?
He's under treason because he hasn't done a thing about it. They're all under treason because they haven't done a thing about it.
Not in that court. You can't do it in that court. It's their court.
It's their court.
We have to build our courts back. We have to build common law courts back so that we can take them for that.
When you talk about common law, you must talk about common law of England.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they screwed me in the Supreme Court under Jones, who used to be the Supreme Court judge up here, old Jonesy, and he turned around, as the court case was going, he turned around and said to me, he said, what the hell's wrong with you? He says, you're standing in a court of common law. And I thought, what the hell is wrong with me? Because under common law I have all my rights. So they wiped the floor with me that day in court. Went home that night and we went through, my chief cook and myself, we went through and found it. They changed common law of England to common law in Australia under their definition of Australia. We just wiped all our rights right out.
We don't have rights.
Then in Marbo 2, when Marbo 2 was on, and I can remember that case because I was watching it, and there was that many clowns going into that court with these bloody caps on, they made millions out of that case. Marbo never made a cent out of it, and they used 5 different common laws to get that case through. And the people got titles to their land under the Queen of Australia. It's just toilet paper. So this is the whole system we're going through. So also if you get taken, you can't, I don't advise anybody to go to court or take anybody to court because you're agreeing to their system.
We went to court in Mareeba, we went to the line, we didn't cross over. We lasted 3 minutes and we walked around and signed a register and put him
Can
in.
you talk louder,
You
please?
the mic? Can you get the mic?
Oh, which is the mic?
Grab that one there, Dave.
Yeah, there you go.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We went to court in Mareeba a few months ago, on a no paying rates. The thing is, what Dick is saying is correct. But where we were smart, we never crossed our line. We kept on the public side of the line. We didn't get into their tyranny line or their.
You pass through the gate.
Yeah, you see, that's the difference. We was on the right side of the law, but they're not on the right side of the law. They're in a systemic system, and we proved to it because we went round and signed 30 affidavits on him, on the judge. Thank you, Dick.
Yeah, that's quite all right, but when you start pushing the law, I've watched the judges just say to the prosecutor, do you recognise what do you understand what this bloke's written? No, Your Honour. Boom. On the floor, out. And then they turn around and you say to the judge, have you got my affidavit? And he goes through a bit of paperwork. Oh, yes, and he reads out a bit of the affidavit. Is that your affidavit? Yes, it's my affidavit. He says, I've read this shit before. Out. When you get into the courts, depends whether judges had a screw the night before, what you're going to come up with. It's just a whole ball game. Like, I had a friend in court, and he was listening to everybody was getting very chucked out, or sort of no hardly any fine or anything. Then the judge had her handbag stolen during dinner time. Everybody got maximum from that point forward. So you've got a mentality. Oh, how would you put it? A personal system in that court, and you can't afford that sort of system. So on any day you can't rely on what a judge is going to come up with. Counsel, yes, please.
I just wanted to go over again what you say to the police. So say if you were to get arrested, because I just didn't quite get that bit. So before you go to the court, because you said something about challenging the police system and the police if you're getting arrested for something.
But put it this way, if you're getting arrested, it's illegal anyway, because they don't have authority to arrest you. See, like, we used to have a police force. The force was from the Crown, which gave them the right to stop and detain. In 1990, they created a police service. They removed the police force and created a police service. So therefore the service was for the corporation. And in that act they have to sign contracts, which makes them mercenaries. The police force is not... The police, they've got to start waking up for themselves, because what the problem is with the police, while they're screwing us and thinking it's great, we can belt the hell out of you and all this sort of thing, they turn around and they're screwing themselves at the same time. We're all losing everything. The lawyers, the dumbest of the educated, they're losing everything. The police are losing everything they've ever had. They might be sitting there paying their house off the same as we are, but at the end of the day, they're losing the whole damn lot, because everything they've got is registered to the Queensland government as well. We've got to get people to think, and especially lawyers and stuff. When you go to university, you're taught not to think. You're taught just to do as you're bloody told. Same with the police force. They get told jump, and they just turn around and say how high. You sort of... I don't think much of the police force, but I will say there's some good ones there. I was fighting Spur for about 18 months, and then they took my driver's licence, and I'm still driving. And the police pulled me up and said, and an old codger comes up, and I said to him, what's up? He says, you're driving without a licence. I said, no, I've got my licence, it's here. And what had Spur done, they'd taken my licence without my knowledge, and so therefore I was driving unregistered, or unlicensed, I should say. What he did, he just pulled out his notebook, wrote down Spur's number. He must have known it backwards, because he just wrote it down. He said, when you get home tonight, you ring these people, you'll have your licence back tomorrow. And he turns around and he says, now you got your wife in the car. And he said to her, can you drive the car home? She said, yes. Okay, on your way. That's a good cop, one you have respect for. But you take a look at what happened in Victoria with COVID, and the beltings that's going on, and the shootings in this state, where all of a sudden people get shot up, and I wouldn't trust. Your police today are a costume wearer and get paid by a foreign company to be their mercenaries and push their system forward.
Thanks, Dick. That's true. That's right.
Yeah,
So-
it is. It's there in black and
You
white.
can ask them for their number and their name. If they can give it to you, you can take them on and their superiors. If they don't give you those numbers, you walk away because there's no fine. They have to give you a fine that's written by their superiors in wet ink. As a
Wet ink is a biro today.
Yes, correct. There's no authority with them.
No, they got. When you turn around, Commonwealth Police, Australian Federal Police, Commonwealth Police, Australian Federal Police, would put in under the Queen of Australia. No authority whatsoever. And they never, at that time, the Commonwealth governments never had authority to even create an act because they're a totally foreign company. We joined that system, or I should say, the political parties joined that system in 1985. So,
They've changed the uniform to black now. It should be blue.
yes,
If it's blue, we come under the
but
Constitution.
no,
Under the 1901 Constitution.
yes, we can come under that, but the simple fact is the law has to be under it as well. Not just the colour of their uniform, because like they used to say, well, my uniform's my authority. It hangs on the bloody clothesline when it's being washed. So I can go next door and grab what's on the clothesline, and now I have the authority of a cop? No way in the world. It's got to go back to square one, where it's our first wording in our Constitution is, where is the people of? Like I said before up here, of is belonging to. So it's the people belonging to those states. We created the Constitution, the Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act, and the Parliament is under us. We vote them in, and at present, because they're political parties, when we vote them in their system, we're giving them authority over us.
On that, earlier we talked a little bit about this signing of the Constitution by Regina, right?
By Queen Victoria.
Queen Victoria, and then Elizabeth Regina. Okay, Elizabeth R.
Yeah.
So there's been this discussion that, I guess if you've been in the common law meetings at all, there's this common discussion about, well, where was the document signed, the new Constitution? Did she sign it at the top, and did she put her real name on it? And does everything underneath that fall into, she's not even acknowledging that that's authentic or not, or where? And we talked about that earlier, and really,
Yeah.
you're saying to me, that doesn't matter. Why are we even having that conversation?
Elizabeth R. Peter Beattie is a very, very good man. When he speaks, he takes everybody with him. He talks about treason, and everybody thinks he's good and whatnot in Parliament. He just took the whole lot in to the system where when I go down, the whole bloody lot of you come with me. He did that in the Queensland Constitution of 2001. He did that in the second reading speech. It's the only second reading speech that I've ever found that's published. He made sure it was published. He tells you in that second reading speech, you go to the annotated constitution of this constitution so everybody knows what we've done. And my door is open for everybody. If you've got any queries, please come in. My door is open. So he's just took the whole damn Parliament with him. When he put Quinton Bryce in as the governor, he explained to the whole Parliament, we have done this since 1985. This is how we put a governor in. And we will have a meeting with the executive government to make sure we can put the public seal of the state over the commission. That's when they hide the signet of the commission and they take the ownership. That's like all these clowns up here, all put in by the public seal of the state. Remember the words, the state. The state created this. It is for the state. So you've got a whole system where it's, I don't know, the hole just gets deeper and deeper as you get into it. Yes?
Where did it all start? Who was the they that started this?
Basically, from what I can gather, it was when they took over the Governor-General in 1960. He is supposed to be appointed by letters patent, stipulates, royal sign manual, and signet. The signet is the authority. I think the signet is where they used to dip wet wax and they plonk a seal into it. That's the authority of Crown authority. You hide that in a document, and you find that you've taken control of that document and that person. And this is what they're doing today, and still doing it. That's what they did in 1960. They put a different document over the signet.
Was it a consortium of Australian people, or did it come from England, or?
Basically, it was from, we have the treason here. The Crown still signs, and Peter Beattie will tell you, the Crown must sign the commission. So it's our treason, like England's in treason, Canada's in treason, New Zealand's in treason, we're in treason. And the treason, our treason starts here. We're the ones that's got to stand up, not expecting somebody from America to so-called come here and do all these great things when, you know, we've got the best constitution in the world, because the Constitution doesn't take anything from us. It doesn't give us anything, because we've got everything at birth. And this system has gone right through till they've started political parties, which are not within our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, have taken everything else because we turn around and vote for them. And then after 1973, they created an Australian electoral roll. And they put that electoral roll in every state. So everyone that was joined that system from that point forward was under their Australia, under their electoral roll. So you have the political parties, they created constitutions in that system, and in that system you've got their definitions, not ours.
So we're all serfs. We're all
Yes,
slaves.
yeah. When they turn around, they change the enacting manner and form, which I'll go into a bit. But when they change the enacting manner and form, like we knew there was trouble when we were learning in the James Cook Uni between 72 and 73. So we go to the university and we get a book from 72, stick it on the table. Get a book from 73, stick it on the table. You open them up and the enacting manner and form's been gone. You've got being enacted by Her Most Excellent Majesty, the Queen, Her Most Excellent Majesty, the Senate and the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth of Australia. Then it went to 1973, being enacted by the Queen, the Senate and the House of Representatives of Australia. They left out Her Most Excellent Majesty, and they left out the word Commonwealth. And when you leave out the word Commonwealth, you go into the annotated constitution for the definition. It is the preamble and the first 6 clauses. So they haven't taken them out, but they don't recognise them. They don't consolidate it is what they use, the word consolidate. They don't consolidate them forward. So therefore they don't read them and they don't understand them. In this system, when you turn around, that removed all the living out of our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act. But if you remember when they turned around and changed the constitutional definitions, it was, they have then Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, but it's their Commonwealth of Australia, right? And you go into all the constitutions today, they're all copyrighted. So all that, basically the main thing they've done is copyrighted our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, where all our rights are. We have every right known to mankind under that act. We got nothing, like they'll tell you we're a democracy. We got nothing under that. We haven't got a damn thing. And they keep pushing that point. Even in this book, they'll tell you we're a democracy. And somewhere in another paragraph, they'll tell you we're a constitutional monarchy. But the thing is, we are a constitutional monarchy. That's what we voted for in 1999, again, to stay as a constitutional monarchy. In that system, we have everything. It doesn't really matter about the king, queen, or they're seat warmers. It's the crown, it's the office. It's the same here. We've got seat warmers as a governor-general, state governors, like all these clowns here. They're all seat warmers and it should be hung. It's a simple process. We just got to stand up.
When do we start hanging them?
Hey, that's a good one thing you've got to remember, when you start hanging them, a noose can be used a number of times.
Fair enough. Now, I asked you a little bit earlier about this because I was sitting here having this conversation with Dick, and some of the stuff I knew about, some of it I didn't. A fair bit of it I didn't. And so my gears started turning in my head, and I'm sitting here thinking, all right, so how do we fix all this? And that's really the trick of it. How do we fix this?
We're going to stand
So
up.
That's all it boils down to.
what it comes down to probably two things here. Two things. Number one is we really got to start learning this stuff. We got to, that it's by design, and we've been saying this in our assembly for a long time. It's by design that I didn't come from Australia, you know that by my accent, okay? But it's by design that you were not taught your Constitution in school growing up. I learned mine. I learned this Bill of Rights and this Declaration of Independence and the whole history. We don't learn that here in Australia. We need to change that shit. Sorry if there's kids in the room, but we need to change that. All right? We need to change it so that we're learning the real version of how government is really supposed to be working. And that's not an easy thing to do. When we're talking, how many people we got in the room tonight? I don't know, a little over 100? 70 then. Okay, 70 people. And we're all getting bits and pieces of this right now. So you're not even being able to soak it all up, really. And neither am I. Right? I'm still learning. Dick is still learning. He just said it 3 or 4 times. But we got to start learning the real way that our government should be run. And as arduous as that is, learning the initial Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act of 1901, UK. That's where it... As proclaimed as dry as that can be sometimes, and we went through a stint here in our assembly where we were going through it line by line in a couple of months. As dry as it can be, it's valuable to know it. Yeah? So that's number one. And then number two is when you get that knowledge, Colette, you're a good example. You've got a lot of knowledge built up in your head. You know a lot of this stuff, right?
And can I say something to you when you said about your Constitution?
Yeah.
Americans know those, and they know their rights, right? And you hear it all the time. You watch it on TV, you watch it on the news.
Don't believe what you see on there.
Wait a minute, though. But our Constitution's better. You know why it's better than that? Because a few people got together and said, we the people. The people writing it, we the people. Ours is whereas the people. 377,000 Commonwealth Australian people voted to have this Constitution. And it's the best Constitution in the world. It's better than Canada's and New Zealand because we have 128.
We in our system,
There's no right. There's nothing in our Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act that is against us. We are put on top of everything. Our Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act, there's no such thing as political parties in it. So why are we voting for political parties? You pull up all your voting papers and it's got political parties this, political parties that all over it. Are you... Oh. Okay. So yeah, you had something to say.
We gotta learn it. Sorry, real quick. We got to learn it, and then we got to start doing something about what we know.
How are we going to do it